outstanding commercial facilities. The trading rested on the visit and the serves in the restaurant rooms and evidence on seismicity, the Cuba and the Cuba interested in the board and hence to the institutions of the commercial banking, the principles and the function of banking. The service of commercial bank is primarily revolves around the mobilizations of deposit and lending the sum of these meetings, finance for their business and other activities. The banks also the renders services like issue of letters of credit and guarantee and remittance of money, the collection of utility bills and the underwriting of capital issue, portfolio management as well as the local services and a lot of other services. And the service of banking commercial banking, the family revolve around the mobilization of deposit of individual and lending some money of this, needing the finance for their business and other activities. The banks also renders the services for issue of letters and credit and guarantee, remittance of money, collection of dividends and underwriting the portfolio management as well as the local services and a lot of things and a lot of other services. The broader definitions of bank and any financial institutions that receives, collect, transfer, pay, exchange, lends, invest and safeguarding money for its customers. And many of these functions are also the performed by the specialized non-banking financial institutions like finance company, leasing company, finance bank, other development companies to also investment bank, insurance companies, and the pension fund, security brokers and dealers, the mortgage companies and real estate investment trust. But in many countries, the specialized and the financial institutions that have overtaken the commercial banks the transfer control over the financial assets and financial and intermediations. The commercial bank. Commercial bank is specialized in a loan of commercial serve and especially short-term loans to industries and businesses and the individuals. Many commercial banks also store and stay into their domain of investment bank by employing part of their resources in long-term loans and assume the role of mercantile banks by underwriting and mortgaging operations. Commercial bank is specialized as specialized in loans of commercial nature, especially short-term loans, to industries and businesses and individuals. Many commercial banks also steps into the domain of this investment bank by employing part of this resource in long-term loans and assumes the rules of mercantile banks by understanding underwriting of and managing share issuers. The commercial banks are the oldest and the financial institutions and they occupy the important position of financial landscape of nearly every country. This is more so of this relatively the undeveloped countries like Bangladesh, where the account is more than 90% of financial assets. And with the full previous development of banking institutions, various systems of commercial banks like unit banking, branch banking, group banking, or holding company, etc. The banking and semi-banking have come into and semi-banking help comes into the provisions and research. The tropical the tropical commercial bank functioning in most countries including Bangladesh is of the branch banking systems. Under the systems, bank is conducted by institutions with head office in large city operating the numerous branches throughout the country. In contrast to this, under the unit banking systems, the banking tends to be the localist and its banking is maintaining the single office. United States is the prime example of country that practice unit banking. And United States is the prime examples of this country that practiced unit banking under the bank in allow the confined its operation within the boundary of only one state. And some state events restricts the operation of banking on only one branches offices. There are also groups banking and semi-banking systems, and group banking is also known as the holding company, and the groups of banks are both under the centralized management. Although each bank has a separate entity on itself, and its efforts the controls by holding company. And this type of banking has been used besides for the purpose of the unification of management and for the training into the closer relation of bank corporation and others and other trading operation. The holding company systems and has evolves in the USA to becomes the legal the restoration on interstate banking. Holding company is used as a leverage corporate bank with separate names and state regulations in different state offices. The organizational structure. Generally, commercial bank is incorporated by the public limited companies in which the shareholding and disappears across the larger sections of investors public. Educationally, however, the controlling interest is held by small groups of individuals and sponsors. And they seriously ground their domain to prevent entry of outsiders in their sports management of the branches. In Bangladesh, for instance, most of commercial bank is owned by small group and the directors the rounds from members of the few and the close in families and the regulatory environment. In all countries, the banking system is strictly regulated by one or more agencies, and the usually central bank is in some countries and other regulatory agency is also involved. In the US, for instance, the banking license is issued by controller of currency or the state of government and government for nationalized for its development. Respectively, in the control of currency and exists the national banks where the Federal Reserve Bank and supervise the supervision operation of state and the level banks and who the offshore becomes the members of federal banking systems. And another agency, Federal Deposit and Insurance Corporations, examining the insurable and the non-members. In almost all countries, the operation of banks are strictly monitored with instruments, regulation, and converting all expected of the settlements. This becomes the zero money deposited by the multitudes of depositors. The government cannot remains the obligations to needs of collecting the interest of depositors. The failure of banks and leaves a trial of course distress and sufferings for many people. The assuring banks for the withdrawal of depositors from banks following the failure of banks and may banks that trigger political and the millions and supers unrested. The International Banking Program and the Bank of International Settlement, the Bank for International Settlement helps the recommended elaborates the ground rules of prevent banking from the runners in every instance. The prescriptions of investment that addresses the critical issue like capital adequacy and the supervisions, corporate governance and others and the procedures, regulations to ensure the best practice. The raise of services the rendered by banks. The range of service of part of the banks is very long and it is getting worse with almost every passing day. The what is starting out as the safe places to depositors and voluntary and signed temples. The how the health now the councils now in other certificates symbols of money. And credit and money transfer and the foreign exchange and the hedges of risks and exchanges. The going of some of these principles functions of the commercial bank services. The collection of deposit and the release bracket. The procedures has been doing this close to the 5,000 years. The commercial bank received deposit from one section to this public and the links to another sections to the prices and tag and price tag and debt call the interest and increase it within less profit make up the terms usually used by sugar and students. With the first of times the modelist and the modelist of the sense and absence but the underlying the principles and has not a sense and muscle but the state of power. And today the commercial space helps the words out of the various and the means of collecting deposit and deposit. They have called current or demand deposit, fixed deposit, saving deposit, short-term deposit and others. There are also the schemes that pay depositors and doubles the amount of deposit money after a specific period of fixed monthly incomes and deposit of the fixed amount after that month. There are another and the variations like the education schemes, children's marriage schemes and others, but the basically deposit of the different accounts of people and the full amount of deposit. The most common examples of deposit and demand deposit in the current account and what is the commercial or what the Americans call the saving account. The current account is popular because the provided product liquidity and immediate and access and it can readily be transferred to a third party as a payment for a goods and services. The saving account pay interest on the depositor but the no specific maturity date in which the fund needed to the withdraw or the invested in depositors and upon a saving account can be drops the amount of deposit subject to limited and process by the bank and the members of the times the amount that can be withdrawn during the window. Some banks requires a prior notice if the amount of proceeds by to the withdraw the assured and the limit in saving account are highly liquid. The time deposit and time deposit are deposit for which the depositor and the bank agree to money will not withdraw and withdraw responsibility. Some flexibility may be imposed for the withdrawals of money and the payment of the penalty. Their frequency calls the fixed deposit receipt or FDRs. Because the restrictions on the withdrawals and time create stimulants or selling indicators. Regardless of how the commercial bank collect deposit, it play an important role to encourage and mobilize the savings of the society. It gathers an national saving and creates a full large enough to the profitability, influencing the industry and the industrials and the industrials and the business and the business. When it provides the money, when it provides this money and to this unit, and those the primary functions of the commercial banker is get a broker and dealers of the money. And through the purpose of intermediate and the intermediations, the commercial bank, the renders and very variables and services to the community to exploit the productive capacity of country. Which accelerated the price of its development and created the employment opportunity. Loans and credit. The lending of money, the whatever we call it loan, credit, and accommodations, and AWC, WMO, accommodations, or any other legislation. And they can take the numerous forms. It may be short terms, medium terms, or long terms. Medium terms or long terms. It may carry fixed interest rate and a floating rate of the interest rate. It may be no fixed capital or working capital. It may be in the forms of cash credit, CC, and hypothetic actions or overdraft. SY, POTAC, hypothecations of overdraft. It may be secreted by hypothetic. It may be secreted by hypothecations, the credit, lien, mortgage, or proprietary financial obligation. It may be given an out of plain and business, and it may be bill of discounting as an against the letter of credit or receipt. The credit, the enhancement services. Another important businesses and service the performance by banks is credit and the enhancement. Commercial banks guarantee by means of performance guarantee the credit of letter of credit and the salary letter of credit assessors. The performance of their clients by promising to pay the debts of the customers does not or cannot fail. The bank is an enough to stronger to credibility of the customers by lending its names as a party to the conduct or transactions. This is particularly important to the international trade, where the buyers and sellers are often not known to their sellers. The bank serves as bridge these credibility gaps. And the exporter is assumed that he receives the payment, and the importer is assumed that payment is not made until and good and shippers the document and the presented the exporters and the motivation of them. A letter of credit can be interpreted of guarantee issued by a banker and the advising some other bankers to do this addresses to honor the check or bill of or a bill of a person's names in a document. To the extent of the stated amount, a letter of credit includes the promise by issuing of bankers to account all bills of the lessee's creditors. And the promise of account is conditional submissions by submission of the document of creditors of goods, it is called the documentary letter of credit. If the promise is unconditional, it is called the clear letter of credit. A letter of credit has several variation, and those will be discussed in some regions in the latter stage. The payment and the remittance services. One of the in-process service offer the frequencies premium and the remittance of funds from one person to another. Once entry to another, and the instruments like the mean transfer, the circular methods of letters of credits and ones which transfers of money are now getting the obsolete. And the giving was to host and convert things of this transfer like electronic fund and transfer, the payment services. And the audio deposits and loans are the basic services provided by banks and institutions like lenders, utility backdrops, other services to the customers. For the consumers, and this includes in the safe cash in the foreign currency exchange and the safe deposit and boxes in which the customers can store the valuables. The increase wires the transfers includes the consumer. They can transfer money from one financial institution to another in the direction of the same. The customers of the banks can